Carolina Risotto.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of No Ducks Given podcast, the podcast where we talk openly and honestly about the highs and lows in life because vulnerability is a superpower, not a weakness. I'm your host, Carolina Risotto, and today we're going to be talking about processing your emotions through art. To lead this conversation, we have New York City-based artist Mickey Roberts. He always had a real natural tendency to work with art, and with time, he realized that it's actually extremely healing, and it's helped him process a lot of unresolved emotions. So Mickey, our first 368 studio creator, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I feel very welcome.
Well, you should, because this is like your second home.
Yeah. It's a wonderful, bright orange environment I've been plunged into here, and it's very nice.
Yes, today, Studio 368, which is where we get to record the podcast from. It's our little creator family here.
Yeah.
It is branded orange for the podcast. You do so many things as an artist, right? Like you're a painter, you're a poet. Tell us a little bit more about you.
I've been making art my entire life. I have sort of always had a tendency toward tactile things. You know, when you're in kindergarten or preschool or something, you have painting class and you do whatever, and you're making art and you're doing arts and crafts and cutting things with scissors. And I just always found that very fun. You're like creating a whole world that's exactly as how you design it to be. Over time, that just became a way that I interact with my world and with my environment is through play and through art and through making things.
One thing I've always noticed is that there's a lot of depth in our conversations, and you're a very emotionally aware guy, which is something a lot of women have a hard time finding. Let me put that note out there. But you just have so much like depth to you, and you're so aware of your emotions. So where did that interest come from to you initially?
My mom was always very, very emotionally vibrant. She still is. And so is my dad. My dad is an actor, so he's very emotional. He wears his emotions on his sleeves, as he always said, and as a lot of people have said. And I kind of do as well. I didn't grow up in a household where people held back their feelings. And I didn't grow up in a household where people didn't use words to articulate their emotions. And I was always encouraged to do the same when I was young. So if I was upset about something, my mom would want me to describe why I was upset, how it made me feel, how I could have felt differently, how I could have reacted differently in that situation, yada, yada, yada. You know, if I got in a fight with someone on the playground at school or something. And my dad was always the same too. So it became very easy and comfortable to be emotionally articulate. And I think just over time, you know, Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule, you practice something for long enough, you become pretty good at it. So I'm proud to say I'm pretty good at articulating my emotional life and also identifying where in the spectrum I fall emotionally at any given moment.
I think after you explain that, I can see why you're able to express your emotions both through paint, which is just like physical and more abstract, and also through your words because you're also a poet.
Yeah.
So this makes so much more sense now because I think people usually can only do one or the other.
I think that's a mindset. You know, when I was young, around 6 years old, I started to get into acting because my dad was an actor. And then I started playing sports when I was in elementary school and then middle school. And so I kind of had to balance these two halves of me. And that manifests into, you know, how you express yourself as you get older. So people will say, you know, well, I'm a digital content creator, or I'm an actor, or I'm a painter, I'm a writer, I'm a director. But I think that all those things are just different mediums. They're different tools for the same thing, for self-expression. So it takes like a little bit of rewiring your mindset to think like, oh, you know what? I could actually do all of those things and fulfill the same common goal, which is to be satisfied, you know, in my life and like enrich my life with these activities. And I don't have to identify as something in order to participate in that thing.
Yeah, I think people have the tendency of putting themselves in a box or attaching themselves to labels, even with introductions too. I hate introducing myself just as a content creator because there's so much more to me than that.
Exactly.
So people have actually been telling me you should just introduce yourself as an artist. So I like that that's how we introduce you as well, because it also just keeps it a little more broad and involves
Yeah.
more of our human aspects as well.
Yeah, well, there's so much about us that, you don't always get an opportunity to show everything about you in every given interaction you have with someone. So if you meet someone under certain circumstances, like at a content creation thing, they're going to see you as a content creator because they're going to see you through the lens through which you presented yourself. And if they see you at something else, like a poetry reading at the New Eurekan or something, then they're going to see you as a poet. Or if they meet you on set, they're going to see you as an actor. If they meet you at a game, they're going to see you as a baseball fan or something. But you can be all those things at the same time, and it's kind of up to you. It's your responsibility to present yourself as wholly and authentically as you can.
When did you start finding out that you were able to process your emotions through your art?
I don't know if I found out that I could do it. I think it's just you gravitate toward the thing that makes you feel better. Art, for me, was always just like a way to maximize the amount of joy I was getting in a moment.
So could you describe to me a little bit about your creative process when you're making a painting? What are you feeling? How do your emotions come out in the painting?
Painting's really fun because you can't make a mistake when you're painting, because if you mess up, you can just cover it right up again and then try again. So it's a very forgiving medium. Slowly but surely, as I'm painting, I find myself pouring like some kind of emotional crap that's in me into the canvas as I'm going. And as I'm painting, I'm watching this thing that's in me that's coming out sort of be exercised onto the canvas. And by the time I'm finished, I feel like I've rid myself of some kind of weight. And I look at the piece and I can see that weight on the canvas. And it's a very cathartic, sort of refreshing experience to have. And then that becomes, I don't want to say addictive, but it becomes very ritualistic, in your life.
Therapeutic, I guess.
Therapeutic. And then you just keep doing it. And then the more you do it, the better you get at it. And then the more quickly you can find yourself in that space where you are in that catharsis. And then, the more you want to do it.
Yeah. And for someone who's not a painter like myself, like, how do you know that what you're doing is right? Like you want to use art as a form of therapy, but you don't even know what to do, like, to get there. It's like, is what I'm painting right or wrong? Like, you just like feel like you have no clue what you're doing and that everything's going to look strange and you're going to fail. So
if you're worried that it's going to come across wrong or silly or be embarrassing to other people, well, then maybe you're making it for the wrong reason, Maybe like make a couple things that you never show anyone. Make some stuff that you're just going to burn after, just to like get it out, because it's not for anybody else. I mean, at a certain stage, it does become something that's for other people, but in the beginning, like, you're doing it for you. And if you're worried about how it's going to look, or how other people are going to think about it, then is it really for you, or is it for your ego, or for how people are going to perceive you after seeing it?
So I know that art can be extremely, skillful. Like, it might require a lot of skill and technique. But when it comes to abstract art, I feel like it's a little more free flow. So how do you know if it's like at a place where you're happy with it?
So I definitely think painting in particular, and I mean all forms of art, music and everything, requires a lot of skill, and acting as well. I am not a skilled artist in any way. Like, I have not gone to school for art. I have not studied under any artists or, been mentored in any kind of serious way. I make things because I have to make them. Because if I don't, I think I'll go crazy. If I don't, then I think I'll be a worse person to other people. So I have to make them. When it comes to abstract art, I do think it's a little more freeing in some sort of traditional sense, but in the same time, because there's no rules, it's a lot more paralyzing of an experience to make abstract art, because there's nothing you can't do, and there's no way to tell when it's finished or when it's right or when it's what you needed it to be. When you're painting a portrait of somebody, you can tell when it's done. I mean, I don't know, because I don't paint portraits, but I can only imagine that by the time you say, wow, that really does look and feel like this person I was painting, you can kind of tell it's done. But an abstract painting can always turn into something else. If it gets out what you needed to get it out, and then you add one more stroke, there's no going back to that other thing. So now you have to ride the ride. And sometimes the painting like just kind of paints itself. The thing that I love so much about abstract art is that you're not painting anything. You're painting something that isn't tangible. You're painting a feeling or an experience or a memory or a wish or a regret. You're painting concepts that you can't take a photo of. You have to really surrender to the feeling that you're experiencing. Be vulnerable. Let it encapsulate you, and let it take you on a journey. And the only thing that you have to sort of document the journey for yourself is the paintbrush and the paint and the canvas. So you just kind of allow it to take you somewhere. And if it makes you cry or scream or punch the canvas or then it does. And if you feel like you can't finish it because you hate how it's making you feel, then you stop. Or you keep going. And it's when you keep going through the times when you really hate what you're doing that you learn something about how it is that you were feeling. Because most of the time when you're feeling something, the feeling is not bad or good. There's no such thing as like a bad feeling. It's how it's integrating with you and your sense of yourself and your identity that is bad or good, So you don't like the feeling of shame because you have an idea of yourself that you didn't live up to. And so when you're feeling that shame, it's in conflict with that identity that you have. So you have to remove your ego, dive into the shame or whatever feeling it is, and let it exist outside of you on a canvas where other people might see it. And that's a scary place to be when someone can see something that you have been trying so hard to hide inside of yourself. And then it comes out and it's on a painting. And other people can go look at it and read it and feel it and then look at you and say, that came out of you? That's disgusting. That horrible thing, that horrible feeling was in there. And I love you as a person and that came out of you. And you have to say, yeah. And if you can't confront that in yourself as my friend, that's the vulnerable place that you as an artist have put yourself in, is to allow people to see the things that you hide and still, despite that, choose to love you.
I think as individuals, we all can be so self-critical. And I experienced actually a few days ago that I was processing some emotions and some things about myself that I'm not proud of. Mm-hmm. And I was really scared of showing that side to someone really close to me. And they were with me during a moment of extreme vulnerability where I couldn't control myself. I couldn't put the facade of, I'm okay, I'm this bubbly person, which I am, but the ugliness was taking over, and they saw that. And I was mostly scared of them, pushing me away, of them not wanting to be in my life anymore because they saw that more than anything. But I was interpreting, let's call that like a painting, that ugly side of me. I was interpreting it as something awful and that people will feel disgusted by me or they'll not want to be near me. But this other person saw it and they saw it from a place of love, Yeah. So they saw it from a completely different perspective than from what I did. And this leads me to the question of, have you ever painted something where your intention or your emotion was one and people interpreted it in a completely different way?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I don't have control over how someone interacts with a piece of work that I make, in the same way that, a fashion designer doesn't have control over where you wear their clothes. And I think that's the other side of the vulnerability that comes with being an artist, is that once you allow other people to step in to what you've offered them, you're not driving anymore. You take your hands off the wheel and you let them put their hands on it. And now the piece is its own thing. It's not, in some sense, it's a representation of you or a part of you or a moment wherein you were that thing. But in another sense, now it's something else completely. And one of the things that I love the most about painting is that it allows me to take an emotional state, like I said before, exercise it onto canvas, and then look at it as though it's not me. It's now something out here that I can objectively receive and analyze and study, so I can grow and I can learn from that feeling. But it's not my feeling. I don't have to try and see the forest through the trees anymore. In the same way that with your friend, you interpret your own shame and sense of disgust about an aspect of yourself that you're hiding as something that is not worthy of love because you don't love it and no one else is seeing it. So the only thing it knows is the lack of love it's getting from you. But once you let someone else see it and they see it with love, now it knows love. And now it's not so ugly anymore because it is lovable. It can be loved. And I think one of the things that's so great about friendship is that they do see you through a lens of love that you don't have the ability to see for yourself sometimes. So you let them see this ugly thing and they look at it as something that's coming out of somebody that they already have decided to love. They love you before they knew that was in there. And then they see it and they see it inside of something that they already love. How can I not love it? You know, of course I love it. And I want to help it. In the same way that if your sibling or your best friend came to you with some sort of serious, shameful thing, your first instinct would be to give them a hug and say, like, it's okay. Because for whatever amount of love you can't give yourself right now, I'll double it. Because that's what friends do, you know? And I think you have to do that for yourself and like see yourself as your own friend. And for me, painting makes that easier because I can actually see it. It's not just like some intangible thing inside my head that I'm bouncing around and like judging myself for and criticizing myself for. I can like take it, grab it with my claws and pull it out of me and put it somewhere and say, okay, this is it. This is that thing that was in there that I was hating so much. And look how beautiful it is. Like now it's art. When it was in here, and in here it was like this crazy tormenting thing, but now it's art. And now maybe it'll live in somebody's home one day and they'll look at it and say, like, that is beautiful. But it's only beautiful once somebody else can see it. And you are also somebody else, you know, once it's out of you. Now it's not you, it's something else.
And you also don't know, like you were saying, what perspective they're going to see that from. So maybe what you put out there that's so ugly, they're seeing it from a point of view that's exactly what they've been needing to heal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a dance, you know, but it takes courage.
That's why I always tell people, like, especially creators in general, people need your voice. Just like there's someone that you follow that motivated you to create content, or that you would be like, oh my God, like if this person didn't exist, I wouldn't have started my own artistical journey. I think we can be that for other people as well. And so that vulnerability that you have as a painter is something I admire a lot.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's something I admire a lot in you and in everyone that works out of 368 and a lot of people in my life. I mean, your vulnerability comes out in different ways.
Yeah.
Mine comes out in painting because it's how I've chosen to let it out. And in acting, you know, like we described the other day, my vulnerability comes out in acting as well. And I think acting is a great way to experience your emotional vulnerability publicly. It's a safe place to do it because people receive your vulnerability and then they applaud. You know, where else in your life do you receive applause for the parts of you that are the ugliest or the rawest or the most scary to share? And then you receive applause for it. So acting is a great playground for people who are trying to be honest in themselves, like an acting class or something. You don't have to be an actor to do it. To go to an acting class and watch how these professional feelers, which is what acting is,
Professional feelers, I love that.
That's what actors are. They're just professional feelers. They get paid to feel things and then take those feelings and apply them to different storylines and different characters and different points in history. And they take all of that and they do all this study, this research on themselves and on the world. And then they channel it all through their emotional life and they become very, very good at feeling. And it's a really healthy thing to practice. But like we said the other day, it's a dangerous thing to do. You know, acting is risky because the second somebody doesn't applaud when you have gone to the edge of the known universe emotionally and said, is it okay? Can I still be lovable? Yeah. And someone says that was terrible. You just crushed them Well, I felt that feeling before. You've just crushed them in a place that they never have ever shown anyone. And that is like terrifying. And that's why so many actors are so, pardon my French, but fucked up. Like they're fucked up people because they so desperately need to be loved. And they're asking so hard and like relentlessly. You know when you like get broken up with in a relationship and your heart just closes and you're like, I'm never going to love again. I'm just going to never be in another relationship again. Actors are like the fools of that, where their heart gets broken and they're like, oh, that was the worst feeling I've ever had. Let's do it again tomorrow. You know, like they relentlessly will get back on the horse and risk getting decimated emotionally again by the whole world or by themselves or by their teacher or their friends or their coworkers every single time they get up, but still they do it. And eventually it wears on you if you're not healthy emotionally and you don't practice or go to therapy or have, vulnerable relationships with your friends and your family and work on yourself regularly. That's why so many actors get destroyed emotionally. And then they find themselves doing reckless things or finding themselves in drugs or being in toxic relationships or quitting the industry altogether because it's hard to freaking do. But it's really rewarding, but it's all practice for life,
It's like expecting them to have an on and off switch to turn on their emotions and going to the peak of vulnerability in whatever scene it may be, rather it be the peak of happiness or the peak of sadness. They have to go there every time. And I can't imagine what it's like going to audition rooms and just say action and just having to turn on like that. I'm imagining it myself. You're like in the middle of your presentation. They're like, okay, cut, like stop. Mm-hmm. Treating you like a robot when you're just putting all of you into the scene because that's what it takes, right? To become an actor.
Well, as an actor, you're in this like crazy emotionally intense scene and you're right in the middle of it and you're right at the climax where you're about to like unleash this emotional tsunami onto your scene partner or whatever. Yeah. And just as it's about to happen, the boom operator says like, cut, plane. Or like the lighting's not right or something happens, a car went by and the sound, and you as an actor have to be like, okay, just tell me when. I'm holding it. Like I was about to get the catharsis that I was looking for and you said cut. So hold on. I'm just going to sit here. And then people are like, oh, that actor, he was so rude to me on set. And it's like, yeah, well, because you asked him to be a monster in this project. And then you kept telling him right before he was about to do it to stop and stop and stop and start again and stop and start again. It's a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do.
Honestly, it sounds traumatizing.
Well, it is. It is.
And it sounds like, how are you even able to process your emotions through acting?
Not to say that I'm biased. I'm opinionated and I might not be wrong. This is a subjective perspective, but I don't think that you can process emotions through acting. I think acting is like a really good way for you to learn how to be honest with your emotional life and how to build your emotional life and grow it and feel it and like reach out emotionally to the depths of your soul and as far as your extremities will reach. Like I can feel love because of like I said before, I'm not a trained artist, but I'm a trained actor. I spent 15 plus years in acting school and working in theaters and working in projects and doing these things. I know how to feel love in the tips of my fingers, or feel jealousy in my knees because my whole body is part of that emotional experience. This is my instrument and the music that I play is emotion. And so like I can do that everywhere, but I don't know how to, through acting, feel that feeling here and then work through how to use that feeling for self-growth or how to take that feeling and analyze it and adapt it into a better way of being in my life. Because that's not the goal of acting. The goal is to feel it and then to let other people see you feel it so they can feel it too. You're a vessel as an actor for a story and for, emotional experience for other people to participate in, for the audience to share with you. But the goal is not to process it. I don't think you can process emotions acting. That's why I paint. because acting wasn't making me a better person. It was making me a fuller feeler. It was making me, what I said before, a professional feeler. But it wasn't making me better as a human being outside of the stage or the set. But painting does, because I'm with myself. I'm not doing it for anyone. And I get to feel the feeling everywhere in my body. And then I get to take it and work through why I'm feeling that way, how it's affecting me in my day-to-day life, how it's affecting my relationships, how I'm responding to that feeling. You know, if you feel like this twinge of anxiety when you hear so-and-so's voice, why? Why does that person make you feel that way? Well, paint it out. Think about this person. Listen to their voice in a voicemail or on an Instagram video or something while you're painting. Why does their voice make you feel that way? And slowly, as you work through that emotion connects to words, and you can learn to articulate it. And then every single word, you find a better one and a better one and a better one to more accurately describe what it is that the emotion is doing. And you're connecting that like physicality of your emotional life to your mind, which is words, and you're parsing it apart. And then all of a sudden you're developing like a map for how this feeling connects to how you live and why. And then you can take that and follow it and turn it into like a guideline for how you can improve upon that relationship with that person in your life, or subdue that anxiety, or live in that anxiety and then turn that anxiety. You know, sometimes anxiety is not bad. Sometimes anxiety is anticipation, or it's just an energy. It's like misplaced energy in your body, and you feel like it's a bad thing. Anxiety has such a negative connotation. But if you know how to channel that energy healthily, then you can use your anxiety to your benefit and to the benefit of other people around you. You know, just feeling things is not enough to be a good human. You know, you can get really good at feeling and you don't know what to do with it.
So through painting, you're putting a lot of yourself in your personal experiences and emotions, processing those emotions through every stroke. And while with acting, it seems to me like it's another person's experience. It's the writers and the characters and the circumstance. How do you put yourself in a position that you've never been in before? For example, let's say you're having to express an emotion that you've never felt, or you have to play like a psychopath or someone with some sort of mental issue. How do you put yourself there? And then how do you come back from that? There's no easy answer to this.
One of the foundational rules in acting is that you never other yourself from the character that you're playing. The second you get a role, it's no longer, you know, he is experiencing this relationship with his father that is painful or whatever. He's suffering grief from the death of his whatever. It's I am. So you change the language. In painting, once you can turn that emotion into language, you can articulate it. It's the same in reverse. You take the language. If you change the language, then it'll change how you feel. So if you talk about your character like it's someone else, you've already put like a block between you emotionally and them. So the character is you, no matter what, no matter who they are, no matter what time they live in, no matter what experiences they've had that you've never had. You are that person, no matter what. And then from there, you look at all the experiences, like you said, you know, maybe they've gone through things that you've never gone through, or they have some sort of mental illness that you haven't experienced. The mental illness part, a lot of research, you know, just frankly, it's just research. But beyond that, every single person has experienced every emotion you can experience, you know, and you are capable of experiencing all those emotions. So like you can put them into context and say, well, I've never felt grief because my mom died, because my mom is still alive, but I have felt grief. So I can take my grief and apply it to the circumstance, and it's the same emotion. And it's my job to just make the truth of that emotion for me resonate in the storyline that is not me.
But then like you're feeling grief, experiencing grief as a character, and then the role ends and you have to recover from that, right? Because you're just so deep in that experience.
Yeah, there's different methods of acting, obviously, and one of them, I think the people that most often criticize actors, they talk about method actors.
Ooh, scary.
Which, that's effectively when you immerse yourself wholly into the experience.
On set and outside of it, right?
Like you live it
Full
completely,
time,
full
you're
time.
that character. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a bad technique to do. There's so many artists try so hard to say like, I am an actor. My life is acting, and I live, eat, breathe, sleep, and I will die acting. Like that is why I was put on this earth, and that's what I do. Or a musician will say the same thing, or an athlete, or a whoever. I don't believe that. You didn't know you were going to be an actor when you were born, and you weren't born. And again, this is a philosophy that I have that might be wrong, and other people might disagree. But like, I don't believe that you were born with a purpose. Mm-hmm. You were not put onto this earth to be an actor. You didn't know what acting was until you were like, I don't know, maybe 2 at the earliest, or 3 when you start understanding what it is. And then you liked it and you wanted to do it. But you could have done anything and been happy. The only thing you are and were born as and will die as and are never not is human. So your first and foremost goal and responsibility in life is to become the best human that you can be, because that's the job we all have. Outside of that, if you want to become a better human through acting, then do that. But if it's detrimental to your well-being, and if it's making you a worse person outside of set, then it's not good for you. Like, don't do that thing. I think a lot of people forget that, like, when they're not doing their job or their chosen art or craft, that all that other time matters too.
What are you outside the label, right? Of
Yeah,
actor.
You're just a human.
You're a person.
Your goals,
how's that going?
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
how are your relationships? I understand that, like, true artists will suffer for their art or whatever. I just don't believe in that. I don't buy that theory,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone should be looking for suffering. Suffering is a thing we will all experience no matter what. We will suffer the most horrendous experiences in life. It's just what living is.
A lot of actors that are workaholics, they're diving 100% into their art, or like method acting, living their art full time. But people do this in many different industries.
Oh yeah.
What do you think of that? Because usually when you're a workaholic, then your personal relationships, get affected, and a bunch of these other sides. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's limiting. I think it's like living life with horse blinders on.
How can you even process your emotions when you're just working, right?
Yeah, and not to say that processing your emotions is the most important thing in the world. It's just something that's been beneficial for me in my life.
It's super important. That's self-awareness.
I think so. I can understand, at the end of the day, there's no right way to live.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hate so much about, like, self-help people, and like people trying to give you, like, sell you some sort of way to improve your life. They think that because they found something that has improved their life, that it's some sort of one-size-fits-all thing. That I don't need to do what you do to make my life better just because it made your life better. There's a million ways to become a good human. I don't think anyone's ever gotten it right. No one has been the perfect human, except for, like, Jesus or Mary.
even Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus did a lot of good things, but I think he must have done some bad things too. I just think that it's so pretentious of a person to think that they have an answer that is worth selling to somebody else. This is all a collaborative effort. I'm not going to sell the things I've learned to you so you can make my life better by trying to be more like me. Like, maybe what I do is not going to work for you, but I need to do it because I'm a worse person if I don't process my emotions.
That's why I think processing your emotions on your own is so important, because when you don't take that time to get to know yourself, you're not going to be able to find out what are the tools that you need to be happy. And then you're going to be looking, elsewhere, outside of you for answers to these random books, which sometimes can bring a lot of value, but it doesn't have all the answers. Only you have about what's going to make you happy, what's going to be good for you. So that's why I think it's important for you to take your time to think, like, why do I feel this way today? Like, what might make me feel better, instead of what does this expert think I should do to be happy? Like, what are the 5 steps I should take? It's such a subjective journey.
Yeah, they're great. They're great tools,
Yeah.
but they're not answers. Maybe it's not about you feeling better today. Maybe it's about you doing something that's better for somebody else. And if that makes you feel better, awesome. But it will certainly make that person feel better. And I think people focus on themselves a lot. This is what I was talking with you the other day about, like, this journey that I'm on with my own art. A lot of it is about what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, how I'm interpreting my own self and my existential crisis that I'm having about being alive and my relationships with these people. I'm trying to start to create work now that is geared less toward documenting my own emotional journey and more like tangibly, practically helping my community and using the art that I'm making to be a vessel of communication and connection for other people that don't have a voice or a platform or an opportunity to share their wisdom or their life experiences, which I think we can all benefit from. Every person can benefit from the other person, you know, like we're all pieces of this giant puzzle. And even if you put all of us together, I'm sure there's a bunch of missing pieces,
Yeah.
you know? So like if your existence was positive for somebody else, then you did it, you know, you won the game. You want to leave this earth, you know, as they say, like better than you came into it.
I think we also learn a lot about ourselves by giving ourselves to other people too, and by doing altruistic things and helping and attending to other people's needs, because it also gives you some empathy and perspective too on, is the thing that I was struggling with really a problem? You know, look what this person is going through. Or I think even feeling useful and helping heal other people helps heal you too. And it's a way to feel empowered. So it's like you're doing good for others and you're also doing good for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's important. You have to, I mean, when you're a kid, your whole world is like this big and everything revolves around you. And everything is just about like you. And kids, like, they take
Yeah.
until they have enough to consider themselves a full person. And then they have a choice to make. And it's like, am I going to keep taking? Or am I going to start like giving and give and give and give? And I think that like really growing up is when you make that transition from taking to giving.
Here's what's interesting. As an artist, we can seek so much validation and applause and become so dependent on it too, accidentally, that I think it's very easy for you to start doing it for the applause rather than for the love of it and for other people, because I do think artists help heal others, you know?
Yeah.
I think this podcast is going to help, you know, people get out of their comfort zone and learn something new about themselves. And that's why I do it. But if I just started doing it so I could get likes and a bunch of views and it suddenly became that, then I lost the entire purpose of it, the entire meaning. And then who are you at the end of the day?
And it might still do good things for people even at that stage, but will you feel like you are doing it, you know, from here still at that point? And like, I think that what this is amazing. That's why I've been so excited to be a part of it. And that's why I've wanted to be on it, is like, I love this.
I'm really happy to be able to combine my personal development and self-expression with something that I actually think is going to help people. I think for me, right, it's really subjective. I think that's the journey to happiness.
Yeah.
Personally. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, assuming that happiness is a destination.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. Not every day is necessarily easy. And not every day I know exactly what's going on here.
Yeah.
But there's always something new to discover. But I'm curious because we talked about your self-expression through art in painting and in acting. But what about poetry? Because that is a universe so separate from mine, because I've had difficulties understanding poetry. There's so many metaphors. I've never been able to write a poem even, and I'm so impressed by people who do. So I would like to understand how that's a different form for you to understand your emotions and put them on paper, how that feels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in the same way that painting is like creating an artwork with paint and a paintbrush and a canvas, like writing poetry or writing anything, you're creating an artwork with other tools, which is like the alphabet. I'm just feeling this thing that is bubbling inside of me and I don't know what it is, and I'm trying words on to it but in the form of poetry. So there's no rules. A sheep can float in a poem, but it can't float in life. But what is a floating sheep? Your mind can go so much farther than we can in physical reality. So I think that poetry for me is just like an amazing way to explore how I can articulate an emotional state outside of our world. Poetry for me it's not that different than painting.
You
and in
even
some ways
combine them too sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because I see there's like a lot of writing in your paintings as well.
It's my first love. Before I was ever painting or drawing or anything, I was writing poetry. It was always just a thing that I was doing like personally. And then I met a couple people who really thought that I could actually do it. And I was having not doubts in acting, but I was having impatience, because acting is just one of those rare industries that, acting can be your favorite thing in the world to do, and you have to consistently ask permission to do it, and then constantly get told, no, you don't have permission to do it. So it's really hard to try and be a professional actor, because you're on this wild ride, but you're not driving. You're sitting in the passenger seat, just like hoping that the driver turns in a nice, direction. But so for art, it's no more stable of a career path by any means to be an artist versus being an actor. But at least I'm driving.
Yeah.
I make all my decisions. I decide where my art is going to go and how I want to showcase it, and where who I want to have it. When people buy work from me or they commission work from me, it's a conversation directly with me and them. And I don't have an agent in art, and I don't have a manager or a producer who's telling me how I have to be an artist. I just get to do exactly what I want to do. So it's this like wonderfully undiluted form of creation that I just don't have the luxury of doing in acting, because I'm a victim of the industry. Or not just, no, I'm not, I won't, that's sort of self-effacing. I'm not a victim of the industry, but I am at the whim of the industry. I can't change what it is. So
I guess what's really comforting about our conversation is the fact that there are so many ways that you can express yourself. And if it's not through words, it can be through paint, or it can be through, acting and being someone else completely. There's just many outlets for you to process your emotions, to find out who you are, to dive into self-discovery. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just put yourself out there and try something new. And you have inspired me already, like a few months ago, to start painting and exploring that just for the fun of it. And I can't wait, because I desperately need a hobby. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, maybe a lot of what I said comes across as fairly like heavy.
You're a deep man. Don't
dense.
deny that. That's good.
But I want to say, like, the reason I do any of it, like the number one reason, is for fun. Like, I don't do it, if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it. But then beneath having fun, it's about a lot of other stuff. What is fun for you?
Where can people find you and your amazing work?
Well, if you want to find me, you can find me in this studio. If you want to like shake hands or get a coffee, then you can find me here.
Studio 368.
If you want to find me, the digital me, I have an Instagram. It's just at Mickey Roberts Art, all one word, all lowercase, MICKEY Roberts, ROBERTS, Art, ART. And I have a website, Mickey Roberts Art. And I have a show coming up soon in May. So if you follow those things, you'll be able to see. I can't give you too many details about it yet, but that will be happening. And where else can you find me? I'll give you my phone number if you come to the studio.
I love that. Be nice and he'll give you his phone number. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining. It was such a pleasure, and I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. I really appreciate yours.
Of course. This was No Ducks Given podcast. I'm Carolina Risotto, and I'll see you on the next one. Quack.
Quack.